Okay, in the last session, right? So we have seen like how can we, connect it to how can we install Postgres database. Okay, so now we are going to see. So now we are going to see what does it mean by data directory and what are the contents of this data directory. So this topic we call it as a understanding that Postgres directory structures in. Okay, so here we are going to see what does it mean by a data directory and what are the contents that are there and what is the purpose of each and everything that we are going to see in detailed manner. Okay, 1 minute. If I In the last session, right? So we are done with the installation. Today we are going to see whether the Postgres is running or not. How can we check whether the Postgres is running or not? There are couple of ways are there. We are going to see one by one. Okay. Just I'm logging in as a Postgres user here. So how can we check whether the Postgres is running or not, right? So we can check user ps-eaf grep Postgres. Is your Postgres server running? No. How can we start the cluster and all that we are going to see in another 10 or 20 minutes. Okay. Now we are going to discuss the Postgres directory structures. Okay. We are going to discuss about the Postgres directory structures. Under the directory structures, we are going to see what does it mean by a data directory and what are the contents of the data directory. So the topic is understanding the Postgres directories. Okay. So what is data directory? So what is data directory? Data directory is a location where we are going to store all the configuration files and the necessary directories which are required to run the Postgres cluster. So Postgres data directory contains the location where you have all the configuration files and the directories which are necessary to run the Postgres cluster, that we call it as a data directory. So what are all the contents of the data directory? So we have couple of configuration files that are available in this data directory. Along with that, some of the directories also there. Do you really need to know about each and every directory? It's not required, but we have to have some basic understanding of what is data directory and what are its contents. So now let's see one by one. So what are the files that are available, right? We will be having postgresql.conf, postgresql.auto.conf. Okay, now pg underscore hba.conf. Okay, and pg underscore version, postmaster.opts, and postmaster.pid. So these are all the couple of configuration files which are available in the data directory. Now let me go to the data directory and show you show you all these files. Okay. Yeah. So before that, what is the data directory location? cd slash u02 postgres data directory, right? If you do this, see there is a pg underscore hpa.conf, pg version, postgresql.conf, postgresql.auto.conf, and there is, where is that? 1 minute. Hmm. So these are the files which are available. So now let me start the Postgres cluster first. Just I'm starting the Postgres cluster to show something else. So how can we start is pg underscore ctl is a utility which is used to start the Postgres cluster, and pgctl hyphen d slash u02 Postgres data directory space start. So what is the location of the pgctl? The pgctl is located under bin location u01 Postgres soft lock pgb16 bin. Okay, the Postgres cluster has started now. So how can we check whether the cluster is running or not? ps-eaf grep Postgres. Okay, ps-eaf grab Postgres. So see, this is the Postgres cluster that is running. So if you remember, when we were discussing about the process based architecture, we discussed about the background writer, val writer, auto vacuum launcher, checkpointer, and all those things, and we have also had the discussion about the postmaster process. This is our postmaster process. So the process which contains the data directory entry, that we call it as a postmaster process. Okay, now let me check the files one by one. So we have postgresql.conf, postgresql.auto.conf, hba.conf, pg version, postmaster.opts, and postmaster.pid. So now we'll discuss one by one. So what is this postgresql.conf and postgresql.auto.conf? These two files we call it as a parameter files. So when we were discussing about the memory based architectures and all, so we have had a discussion about the shared buffers, val buffers, and associated parameters. For shared buffers, what is the parameter? Shared underscore buffers is the parameter. For val buffers, val underscore buffers is the parameter. Likewise, for work memory, we have work underscore mem, and for the maintenance work memory, we have maintenance underscore work underscore mem, where these parameters are going to get stored. So postgresql.conf and postgresql.auto.conf. Okay, postgresql.conf and postgresql.auto.conf. These two are the parameter files in which the parameters are going to get stored. Okay, these in which those parameters are going to get stored. So the next thing, so how can we change the parameter and how can we see and all those things, we will be discussing it in the next class, which is a parameter file management. So there you will be seeing each and everything in detail. So what is the next file? pg underscore hba.conf. So this is a file which is responsible for performing the host based authentication. So which is the process that is responsible for performing the host based authentication? Postmaster is a process which is responsible for performing the host based authentication. So it makes use of pg underscore hba.conf configuration file to like perform the authentication. So more about this we will be discussing it in later classes, because we will be having a separate class for the parameter file management, and we are also going to have a separate class for the host based authentication as well. The next file that we are going to discuss is pg version. Now let's go and check what is there in the pg version. So cat is a command to display the contents of a file. So pg version 16. So which version of Postgres software that we have installed? We have installed a Postgres version of 16. So pg version is a file which stores the Postgres version information. Postmaster.opts. Okay, postmaster.opts talks about how you have started your Postgres cluster. How you have started your Postgres cluster. So how I have started my Postgres cluster, likewise only, right? pgctl-d u02 Postgres data directory. So what are all the options that you have passed to start your Postgres cluster? That information will be stored in the postmaster.opts. The next and last file is postmaster.pid. So before discussing about this postmaster.pid, now let me check the Postgres cluster status. How can we check the Postgres cluster status? ps-eaf grep Postgres. If you see what is the PID of the postmaster process, what is the postmaster process? So the process which contains data directory entry, we call it as a postmaster process. And what is the PID? 29265. When you open the postmaster.pid file, so 292.65 is the PID entry that is there. So postmaster.pid is a file. Okay, postmaster.pid is a configuration file which stores the process ID of the postmaster process and the port number as well. By default, Postgres runs on a port 5432. What is the default port number for a Postgres database? 5432 is the default port number for you know Postgres database. So these are all the different configuration files that we have in data directory. So what are now the next thing that we are going to discuss is what are the different directories that we have. We have a base directory, we have a global directory, and we have pg underscore tbl spc. Okay, and we will be having like pg underscore rip slots, and we are also going to have pg underscore val. So these are the different directories that we have in Postgres cluster. So we are going to see what is these directories and all. So pg underscore tbl spc, it is a directory which contains the user created table space information. User created table spaces information. More about this you are going to see it in the table space management. Okay, so user created table spaces information. Okay, the pg underscore rip slot contains replication slots information. More about this you are going to see it in the replication. So pg underscore val contains val files. Okay, pg underscore val contains val files. And what is the base and global? So global is a directory which contains the data dictionaries. So, what is a data dictionary? So, PG underscore users is a data dictionary, PG underscore database is a data dictionary, and likewise, we will be having different types of system tables are there, which is going to store the information about the Postgres cluster. Those data dictionaries will get stored in the global directory. Okay, global directory is a directory which contains the information, which holds the data directory, which holds the data dictionaries. The next directory that we have in Postgres is a base. So what is base? Okay, what is base directory? So this base directory contains databases. Okay, whenever you create any database, okay, whenever you create any database, an entry will be added. An entry will be added in the base directory with the name same as OID of the database. So what is base directory? So base directory contains the database information. So whenever you create any new database, an entry will be added in the base directory with the name same as OID of the database which you have created. So now let me do one thing. So how can we connect to the Postgres database that we will be seeing it in a while? So now let me log in. PSQL is a command line utility which we will use to connect to the Postgres database. 1 minute. cd slash u01 postgres data softlog pgv16 bin dot slash psql. So slash l. So by these three databases are the default database in Postgres. One is Postgres template 0 and template 1. More about this we are going to see in detail in the database management class. So now what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to create one more database. Create database test. I have created one database. Now how if you do slash l, a new database got created. More about this we'll be seeing it in the database management. No need to worry. So now how can I find out the OID of the database? What does it mean by OID? In Postgres, whenever you create anything, it can be a table or table space or schema or function or procedure or view, anything. Each and every object in the Postgres cluster will be assigned with a unique identifier. We call it as OID, which is a object identifier. So how can we find out the object identifier of the database which we have created is So there is a data dictionary called pg underscore database. What is slash d? Slash d will describe the structure of a pg underscore database table. PG underscore database is a system table or data dictionary which contains the information about all the databases. Now select OID comma dat name from PG underscore database. Select OID comma dat name from PG underscore database. See what is the OID of the test database that we have created. 16388 is the OID of the test database that we have created. Now let me go to the data directory U02 Postgres data directory. So here we will be having a base directory cd base lsc 16388 is created. So what base directory contains? Base directory is a directory which contains the information about all the databases. So whenever we create any database, a new directory will be created with the name same as OID of the database which we have created. So this is about the directory structures in Postgres. The next thing that we are going to discuss is how can we set up the environment. Setting up the environment. How can we set up the environment that we are going to see? So what does it mean by setting up the environment, right? Which location I am in some slash home slash postgres location. So if I want to connect to a postgres database, how can we do that? I need to use a PSQL command line utility. So when I am using a PSQL command line utility, what it is telling? It is telling the command not found. Does this command really, we don't have this command really? No, we have this PSQL utility. Where is the location? It is in the Postgres binaries location. What is the location? Slash U01 Postgres soft lock pgv16 bin. If you see PSQL, it is there, right? So if you run it the PSQL from here, it is working. But if you run the PSQL from somewhere, then it is not working. Because why it is not working, right? Why it is not working, right? Because the Linux is not able to find the location of the PSQL utility. What is happening? The Linux system is not able to locate the PSQL utility. That is the reason why it is through, whenever you are running the PSQL command from somewhere else, it is throwing an error stating command not found. So how can we, resolve this issue? How can we resolve this issue, right? We can resolve this issue by setting up an environmental variable called path. Okay, so this issue can be resolved by setting up an environmental variable called path. Path is a system variable in Linux which talks about what are all the locations that we need to look into when you fire any command. So this command can be anything. It can be a cd, or it can be a cp, or it can be a mkdir, or it can be like anything chown. So let's say when I do like cp, right? When I do like cat, what happens? Nothing I have given, right? So cat space test. Anyway, the file does not exist. That's the command. So what happens that whenever you fire any command, so how the command will really get executed, right? By using a environmental variable called path. Path is a system variable or environmental variable. So whenever you fire, let's say I fired a PSQL command, right? When I fire a PSQL command, first what it will do? It will go and check whether the PSQL utility is there in this location or not. If the PSQL utility is there in this location, then it will try to execute. If not, then it will go this location and check whether the PSQL utility is there or not. If not, then it will go to this location and check whether the PSQL utility is there or not. If not, then it will go to this location. If it will go to this location, then it will go to this location. If the PSQL utility is not available in all of the locations that we are seeing it in the path variable, then we are going to get command not found error. Then we are going to get command not found error. So now what I'm trying to do, right? So I am trying to export this path value. So export path equal to slash u01 slash postgres softlock pgv16 slash bin colon dollar path. So what I'm trying to do, what is the existing path value? This is the existing path value. To this, I am trying to attach, or I am trying to append my location where I have installed the binaries. I did that. Now let me do echo dollar path. See, whenever you do PSQL, first it will go and check in this location. If not, then it will go to this location, then this location. Likewise, it will go to all the locations. If the PSQL is not available, then it is going to throw an error. Now let me do. So PSQL. See, now it got connected because the moment you type PSQL, first it will go and check in this location. The PSQL is already available in this location, so it is trying to execute it. How can we find out which PSQL will give you the result? So when I do like which PSQL, it is trying to get the PSQL from this Postgres binaries location. So but what is the disadvantage with exporting this value, right? So let's say I have disconnected from the Postgres user, and again if I connected, okay, again if it is connected, then I do a PSQL, it will throw an error because the whatever the export that we have done, okay, whatever that is a session level, it is not a persistent. The moment you have disconnected from that, and if you try to reconnect, this will be erased. So how can we make it permanent? How can we make it permanent, right? We can make it permanent by keeping these values in a environmental file called bash profile. There is a file in Linux which we call it as a bash underscore profile. So what is the purpose of this bash profile is whenever you log in, okay, whenever you log in to the Linux system, so each and every user will be having one bash profile file. Okay, whenever the user logged into the Linux system, this bash profile file will be executed every time. So what is the location of this bash profile? The location of this bash profile file is user's home directory. What is the location of this bash profile file? User's home directory is the location of the bash profile. So now let me go and check how can we go to the user's home directory. When you do like cd enter, 1 minute. So whenever, I'm sorry. So whenever you type cd enter, it will go to the user's home directory, and this is the user's home directory. Every user will be having its own home directory. Wherever you are, when you hit cd enter, then it is going to go to the home directory. So ls-ltr, ls-ltra. So bash profile file is a hidden file. Okay, bash profile file is a hidden file. So you need to use -a option to show, to display that. Okay, now let me open this bash profile file. So when you open this bash profile, nothing is there. So you need to add some entries. Okay, so to do that, what I'm going to do, right? First of all, I'm going to exit from here. In the root also, we will be having one bash profile. So I'm going to open that. So this is a bash profile which I have in root. Just I'll copy this. Now again I log into the Postgres user. Okay, now va space dot bash underscore profile. Just remove this and add this. And we need to append what? We need to append the Postgres binaries location, right? So how can we do that? Export pg underscore home equal to export pg underscore home equal to what is the Postgres home slash u01 slash Postgres slash soft loc slash pgv16. This is the location where I have installed the Postgres binaries, and export path equal to dollar. So just what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to append the pg home. Okay, I'm trying to append the pg home slash pg home slash bin colon dollar path. So why we are doing this, right? This is a persistent. Though you disconnect and connect, So this will not be removed. So how can we run? So once the entry has been added, you need to run the bash profile. How can we run this bash profile? Dot space dot bash underscore profile. So when you run this, if you see like which PSQL, so it is there. Now let me exit from here, again login. So the moment you log in again, bash profile will get executed. So which PSQL will give you the command. So no need to every time. So when you set up this environment, right? No need to go to the Postgres binaries location every time to execute the commands. So no need to go to the PSQL command, the Postgres binaries location every time to execute the command. You can run the command from anywhere. Simply what we are telling, right? We are telling the Linux system to check the PSQL utility in so and so location. So the moment we give this, it will go and check in all the locations that are specified using path. If it finds that, then it will going to execute. If not, then it will throw an error. So any doubts so far?
No, Hare.
Okay. So now the next thing that we are going to discuss is we are going to discuss about the cluster operations in Postgres, which is very important and easy as well. So cluster operations in Postgres. So what are the different cluster operations that we have in Postgres is, so what are the different cluster operations that we have in Postgres is we can start the cluster, we can stop the cluster, we can restart the cluster, and we can reload the cluster, and we can check the status of the cluster. So these are all the different cluster operations that we have in Postgres, and pg underscore ctl is a utility. Okay, pg underscore ctl is a utility through which we are going to perform these cluster operations. So what is a cluster operations? Cluster operation means whether we can start the Postgres cluster, we can stop the Postgres cluster, we can restart the cluster, reload the cluster, and check the status of the cluster. And pg underscore ctl is a utility which is going to get used for performing these operations, and the location of this pg underscore ctl is a binaries location where this utility will be available. This utility will be available in the Postgres binaries location, which means cd slash u01 Postgres soft lock pgv16 bin ls lspg underscore ctl. See, this is the location of the pg underscore ctl utility, right? Now the next thing that we are going to check is how can we perform the cluster operations. As I said, pg underscore ctl is a utility, hyphen d data directory space operation. This is the
Hare,
syntax.
what is meant by exactly a cluster? Cluster means what?
It's not a cluster, doesn't mean don't compare this cluster with the Oracle which you have like multi-node kind of thing. Why we are the single node we call it as a Postgres cluster, because this Postgres instance or cluster contains multiple databases. That is the reason why we call it as a Postgres cluster. It doesn't mean like we will be having a multiple nodes or not. Can you go on mute, please? So it doesn't mean like don't compare this with like Oracle where we will be having a multiple nodes in rack environments. It's not like that. A single node will also be called as a cluster because Postgres data cluster or Postgres instance contains multiple databases. Okay.
Okay, okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay. So now, so this is the syntax pgctl hyphen d data directory and the operation. The next, so how can we perform like pg underscore ctl hyphen d? What is the data directory location slash u02 postgres slash data underscore directory. This is the data directory location, right? And If you want to start the cluster, you can start. So next, pg underscore ctl hyphen d slash u02 postgres slash data underscore directory. If you want to stop the cluster, you can stop. pg underscore ctl hyphen d slash u02 postgres restart. Okay, reload. And if you want to check the status, pg underscore ctl hyphen d slash u02 postgres status. So these are all the various commands that we can execute to check the to perform each and every operation. So if you remember during the starting of this class, we have already started the Postgres cluster using pg underscore ctl utility. Now let me check the status. How can we check the status of a Postgres cluster? We can check in two ways. One is ps-eaf grep postgres, right? Otherwise you can also check pg underscore ctl hyphen d slash u02 postgres data directory status. See, the postgres cluster is running. So what is the pid? 29265. Let me check. So this is the postmaster process, and what is the pid? 29265. How can we stop? If you want to stop, you can stop the cluster and check the status. It's not running. Sorry, see, no server is running. So now again, how can I start? Yes, if you want to restart, if you want to reload. Okay, now let me do one thing. Now let me open a one more session. Yeah, let me log in. Okay, here let me log in as a Postgres PSQL. Just I configured a Postgres database in one session. In the another session, what I'm trying to do, right? One minute, one minute. In the other session, what I'm trying in one session, I'm trying to I logged in as a Postgres user. In the other session, I'm trying to restart the Postgres cluster. First of all, let me try to display the databases. I'm firing some command here. So slash l is a command to list the databases that are available in the Postgres cluster. So now I am doing a restart. Okay, I have restarted my cluster. When you do like slash l, see, whatever whenever you do restart, what is happening? pgctl is going to stop the cluster and it is going to restart the cluster. During this brief time, whatever the active connections that are there, those will be disconnected, right? So now why I am showing you this, right? Why I am showing you this is I wanted to let you know the differences between restart and reload. Now let me do a reload. When I do a reload, right, and do a like slash l here, so do you see any interruptions to the active connections? No. So what happens, right, whenever you do a restart, okay, whenever you do restart, whatever the active connections that are there in the Postgres database will be disconnected, because it is going to start and stop the cluster. So then what exactly going to happen when you do a reload? When you do a reload, there will be no interruption to the connections. There will be no interruptions. there will be no interruptions to the connections. So what happens, right? So what exactly the purpose of the reload is, it is going to reread all the configuration files. It is going to do what? Reread the configuration files. What are the configuration files that we have? We have a postgresql.conf, we have postgresql.auto.conf, we will be having a pg underscore hba.conf. So whenever you change any parameter, does all the parameters reload works? No, depending upon the type of the parameter. So we might need to go for the restart as well. But so whenever you change anything, either you need to go for the reloading or restarting of the Postgres cluster. So reload, what exactly it will do? Reload is going to reread all the configuration files. So whenever you change any parameter or whenever you modify pg underscore hp.conf file, you need to reload the operation so that the Postgres is going to reread the configuration file. So whatever the changes that we have done, those will comes into picture. So this is about the cluster operations in Postgres. Any doubts so far, or can I continue with the next topic?
Ari, 1 minute. So whenever some parameter changes, no,
Hmm.
so we don't need downtime for the time if we reload. Right?
That's what I have told you, like, it depends on the type of the parameter. So in Oracle you might be having a static and dynamic parameters, right? So if it is a static parameter, you need to go for the restart. If it is a dynamic parameter, nothing is needed, right? Likewise, in Postgres also we will be having, it's not, I don't call it as a static and dynamic parameters. In Postgres also we having a some concept. Okay, depending upon that, either you need to go for the reloading of the cluster or restarting of the cluster. So some parameters needs a restart and some parameters needs a reload. Okay, that depends on the type of the parameter, and more about this you will be seeing it in the Saturday's class, where we are going to discuss about the parameter file management. Okay,
Okay. And also how can we check in Postgres what is the last restart database was started?
that we'll be seeing it in the upcoming classes actually.
Okay.
So slowly, what I'm trying to do is slowly I'm trying to let you guys understand about the Postgres, and slowly we will deep dive. Okay, each and everything will be covered, and each and every, so what, when I was talking about the parameter, doesn't mean that parameter file concept is done. So we'll be having a separate topic altogether, and we'll for the, when I was talking about the pg underscore hp.conf, so it will be having a separate topic called host based authentication. So there you will get more clarity, but here I'm planning to give you an idea like what is parameter and what is reload operations, what is the host based authentication and all. So on top of that, we are going to have a foundation in the deeper details. Okay, so this is like the cluster operations in Postgres. The next topic that we are going to discuss is how you can connect to the Postgres database. This is also a very easy thing. Okay, so now let's say I have a user. Forget about the database. Let's say there is a database which is running on 192.168.29.30. The user wants to connect to this database. Okay, what are all the details that user should have to connect to the database? Okay, so user should have what? Host name or IP address, right? User should have a port number on which the database is running. User should have a username, password, and the database which he wants to connect. These are all the minimum details that any of the user needed to connect to any of the database. It can be a Postgres, Oracle, or SQL Server, or anything. These are all the basic details that someone should have to establish a connection to the database which is running on a so and so server. So If you remember when we were discussing about the general purpose architecture, so we have discussed about the different types of tools that are available, and based on the availability and type of the tools, we divide them into GUI based tools and CLI based tools. In the GUI based tools, we have a PG admin and DB waiver, and we do have lot of them. In CLI, we will be having a PSQL, right? Okay, first we are going to see how can we connect using PSQL. So PSQL is a command line utility, okay, through which you can connect. So you need to pass hyphen capital U username, hyphen small h host name or IP, and hyphen P port number, and hyphen D DB name which you want to connect. This is how you will establish a connection to connections to the Postgres database. And one more thing that we are going to see, right? So let me try to connect with this. So PSQL hyphen capital U Postgres hyphen H is, so are you going to establish a local connection or remote connection here? Do you know the difference between local connection and remote connection? So if not, just let me explain. So here we are sitting on the system where the Postgres database is already running, and if you are trying to establish the connection to the Postgres database from the server on which the database is already running, then we call it as a local connection. So remote connection means I am sitting on my Windows machine and I am trying to connect to a Postgres database which is running on some different server. That we call it as a, then that we call it as what, remote connection. So it is a local connection. So what is the IP address? 127.0.0.1 is my IP address of my system. 127.0.0.1 refers to a local connection. So hyphen P 5432 hyphen D, I am trying to connect to a Postgres database. So I connected. How can we check? When you do /c, it will give you the details. So you are now connected to a database Postgres as a user Postgres. So this is how it works. Now we will be seeing couple of scenarios how can we connect. So now when I do PSQL, it also got connected. When you do like /c, so you are now connected to a database Postgres as a user Postgres. How it is going to happen, that we are going to see now. Okay, we are going to see the couple of scenarios. Like when I do like PSQL, only PSQL, what happens that hyphen U will be taken as a operating system user. So through currently I logged in as which user in the at operating system level? Operating system level I logged in as a which user? Postgres user. So hyphen U will be taken as a operating system user, hyphen H will be taken as a local host. Okay, hyphen P, as I said, Postgres runs on a default port number 5432. So when you, if you do not provide any port number, by default Postgres will try to connect to establish a connection or a port 5432, and hyphen D will be the name same as username. What is the user that we are trying to pass here? The username is Postgres, so hyphen D will be database, also will be a Postgres. Okay, I'll show you in detail more about this. So PSQL hyphen U Postgres hyphen H 127.0.0.1. So then hyphen P will be taken as a 5432 and hyphen D will be taken as a database name with the name same as username. So it is connected to the Postgres database. Now what I'll do, right? I'll create one user, create user demo. How to create the user and all, that is a separate topic. Just to explain the PSQL functionality, just I'm trying to create user, right? Create user demo with password admin 123. I created a user. Now what I will do, right? 1 minute. Hello. Okay, now I log in as a demo user. PSQL hyphen u demo hyphen h I'm not using. So let's say use 127.0.0.1 hyphen p 5432, and I'm not using the database name. So what would be the database name here? To which database it will try to connect? To which database it
Postgre,
will try to connect?
Postgre.
No, when you do not specify database name, it will try to connect to a database with the name same as username. What is the username here? Demo. When I do enter, so what is the error you got? Connection to the server 127.0.0.1 port number 5432 failed. Database demo does not exist. As I said, PSQL is going to take some defaults when you do not specify some options. So here in the above command, I did not mention the database name. As I did not mention the database name, post PSQL doesn't know to which database it has to connect. So now it is attempting to connect to a database with the name same as username, which is demo, but the demo database is not available. That is the reason why it throws an error. So now if I give you like hyphen d postgres, then it will connect slash c. You are now connected to the database postgres as a user demo. Now what I'll do, right, I'll try to create a database. If you want to create a database, then you log in as a super user, which is postgres. Now create database demo. I created a database demo. Now if I do this, just remove the hyphen d psql hyphen u demo hyphen h 127.0.0.1 so and hyphen p 5432 and hit enter. It will connect. Through which database it will connect? It, as you did not specify the database name, it will try to connect to the database with the name same as username, which is demo, and the demo database is already available because which we have created already. So it is connected to the demo database. Is this clear? Are any doubts? Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes, it is clear.
Yeah. So the next, so this is how you will can establish a connectivity. Now I'll show you how to connect using pgadmin as well. So this is a pgadmin which I have installed in my like Windows machine. So before doing that, we need to change one parameter. So what is that parameter? Is show listen. About changing these parameters and all, you will be seeing it in the next class anyway. Just for showing this pgadmin demo, I'm changing this parameter. Show listen underscore addresses localhost. What listen underscore addresses talks about, right? This listen underscore addresses talks about what kind of connections the Postgres has to accept. By default, it is going to accept only local connections. So what I can do, but is this feasible solution? No. Let's say in my environment, I have a database that is installed. My database and app servers will not be on the same server, right? So my app server will be somewhere, and app server will establish a remote connectivity. To do that, we need to change a parameter. Alter system set listen underscore addresses equal to star. When you keep listen underscore addresses equal to star, which means, okay, let me log in as a admin user. So when you keep, okay, when you keep listen underscore addresses equal to star, which means you are telling the Postgres system to accept both local and remote connections, and this is a static parameter and which needs a restart. Okay, this is what I have done. Okay, now PSQL show listen underscore address, it is star. And one more thing that we need to do, right, you need to stop the firewall as well. Sudo system ctl disable firewall d. Okay, 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 firewall d. Okay, now let me stop the firewall as well. So if you do not stop the firewall, it won't accept the connection. Okay, okay. Now So this is my pg admin, how it looks like. Then simply you need to go to the servers and register a server. Okay, the name can be anything. I am giving like feb underscore training, and just go to the connections. And what here, what you need to provide, you need to provide the ip address of the server on which your database is running. What is the ip? 192.168.29.125. I'm trying to connect, and the establish a connection 5432. Database is Postgres, or let me connect to the demo database. And username is Postgres, and the password is, I'm going to, I think I forgot the password. Let me reset the password for a Postgres user. Alter user. Don't worry about all these things. We will be discussing this in a user management. Okay, alter user Postgres with password admin 123. I did it. So the password is what? Admin 123. Okay, save. Just I'm going to save the. No, don't save the password. Yeah. What is the error that you got? Unable to connect to the server. Fatal. No pg underscore hba.conf entry for the host 192.168.29.119 for the user Postgres and for the database demo. What is this 192.168.29.119? This is my IP address of my Windows machine. So from where I am trying to establish the connectivity. So you got the host based authentication error. So it is saying, so this is the IP address of my Windows machine from which I am trying to connect to the Postgres database, and the host based authentication for that server is rejected. So with this is how you will establish a connection. With this, we are entering into a topic called host based authentication in the next class. So just we got the error. In the next class, we are going to see in detail about what is this host based authentication and how can we resolve this error, and what are the entries that we need to make, and how can we change these settings, and how can we modify the pg underscore hp configuration file. About all those things we are going to discuss in detailed about the host based authentication in the tomorrow's class. Okay, that's it for today, and we'll connect tomorrow with the host based authentication. Thank you. Any doubts? If not, then just we will wind up the session for today.